America, land of the free, home of the brave, and home of some really weird laws, like you can't put ice cream in your back pocket, you can't wake up a bear for a selfie, and definitely no singing in your bathing suit. Wait, what? I'm Geo, and today we're counting down the top 10 weirdest laws in America. Laws so dumb you won't believe they're real, but they are. Let's go. Number 10, Kentucky, also known as the Bluegrass State. Kentucky is famous for many things: bourbon whiskey, the Kentucky Derby, finger-licking fried chicken, but also famous for this law. In the state of Kentucky, it is completely illegal to carry an ice cream cone in your back pocket. I know. That sounds absolutely ridiculous. But why? Why does this law even exist? Well, it turns out, back in the 1800s, horse thieves came up with a sneaky trick. They would put sweet treats in their back pockets to lure horses away. The horse would smell the ice cream, follow the thief all the way home, and boom, free horse, stolen without any force. So Kentucky had enough. They made a new law. No more ice cream in your pockets. Problem officially solved. And here's the crazy part. This law is still on the books today, in the year 2025. Wild. Number 9, Alaska, the last frontier, the largest state in America by far. You could fit Texas inside Alaska twice and still have room to spare. A land of ancient glaciers, dense wilderness, and wildlife that demands respect. Grizzly bears, wolves, moose. This is their territory, and Alaska has laws to match, including one that makes it illegal to wake a sleeping bear for a photo opportunity. On the surface, this seems obvious. A grizzly bear can weigh over 600 pounds and run 30 miles per hour. Disturbing one is a death wish, but the fact that lawmakers had to put this in writing tells you something about the judgment of certain visitors. Every summer, thousands of tourists flood into Alaska hoping for the perfect wildlife shot, and some of them get dangerously creative. Park rangers report people throwing rocks at sleeping bears, poking them with sticks, even using air horns, all for a photo. So Alaska made it official. Disturb a bear, face a fine. Simple as that. But that's not Alaska's strangest wildlife law. Not even close. There's also a law in Alaska that prohibits pushing a live moose out of a moving aircraft. This raises an obvious question. What series of events led to this becoming necessary? Apparently, hunters in the mid-20th century would spot moose from planes, land nearby, and chase them to exhaustion. Some took shortcuts. The law put an end to that. In Alaska, the wildlife comes first. Tourists and hunters come second. Number 8, Arizona, the Grand Canyon State. Arizona is a land of extremes, scorching deserts that reach 120 degrees, ancient saguaro cacti that have stood for 200 years, sunsets that look like paintings. But Arizona also has one of the most oddly specific laws in the entire country, and it involves donkeys. In the state of Arizona, it is illegal for a donkey to sleep in a bathtub. Not a horse, not a cow, not livestock in general, specifically donkeys, specifically bathtubs. The specificity of this law suggests there's a story behind it, and there is. In 1920, a rancher in the town of Kingman owned a donkey with an unusual habit. The donkey discovered an old bathtub that had been abandoned in a backyard. The donkey loved it. Every day, without fail, he would climb into that tub and fall asleep. It became his favorite spot. Then came the flood. A local dam broke, and water came rushing through the valley. The bathtub, with the donkey still inside, was swept away by the current. The donkey floated for miles. The entire town mobilized to rescue him. It took significant time and resources to bring him to safety. The donkey survived. But the town had learned a lesson. This situation could never be allowed to happen again. So the town passed a law: no donkeys in bathtubs. And eventually it made its way into state legislation. One donkey's love of bathtubs led to statewide legislation. That's the power of unintended consequences. To this day, if you own a donkey in Arizona, keep him out of the tub. It's the law. Number 7, Nevada, the Silver State. Nevada is a state built on contradictions. It's home to Las Vegas, the entertainment capital of the world, but also vast stretches of empty desert where you won't see another person for 100 miles. Area 51. Legal gambling. Drive-through weddings. Nevada has always played by its own rules. But even Nevada, with all its permissiveness, has one traffic law that stands out as genuinely bizarre. In Nevada, it is illegal to drive a camel on the highway. This raises an immediate question. Why would Nevada need a law about camels? The answer lies in one of America's strangest military experiments. In 1855, the United States Army had an idea. What if camels could solve their desert transportation problems? They imported dozens of camels from the Middle East and put them to work in the deserts of the Southwest. The project was called the United States Camel Corps, and it worked. Camels thrived in conditions that destroyed horses and mules. They could carry more weight, travel farther, and needed less water. But then the Civil War broke out. The Army had bigger concerns. The camel program was abandoned, and the animals were released into the wild or sold to private owners. For decades afterward, wild camels roamed the Nevada desert. Travelers reported sightings well into the 20th century. As automobiles became common, camels and cars began sharing the same roads. This created obvious problems. So Nevada passed a law. No camels on the highway. The roads belong to cars now. The wild camels are long gone now, but the law remains on the books. A strange reminder of one of America's most unusual military experiments. Number 6. Chicago, Illinois. The Windy City. Chicago is a city of legends. World-class architecture that rose from the ashes of the Great Fire, the birthplace of the skyscraper, deep dish pizza, the blues, Michael Jordan. But there's one thing Chicago takes more seriously than almost anything else, and that's the hot dog. A proper Chicago dog is a work of art. Yellow mustard, bright green relish, chopped onions, tomato slices, a pickle spear, sport peppers, celery salt, all on a poppy seed bun. But there's one ingredient that's conspicuously absent from that list: ketchup. In Chicago, putting ketchup on a hot dog isn't just frowned upon. In certain contexts, it's actually against the rules. The National Hot Dog and Sausage Council has officially declared that ketchup should never be used on a hot dog by anyone over the age of 18. Many Chicago hot dog stands refuse to stock ketchup entirely. Others will serve it, but not without visible disappointment. The reasoning behind this rule is culinary, not legal. Chicagoans argue that ketchup's sweetness overwhelms the carefully balanced flavors of a proper Chicago dog. It masks the quality of the beef and negates the purpose of every other topping. While this isn't technically a state law, the social enforcement in Chicago is absolute. Ask for ketchup and you will be judged. Former Chicago Mayor Rahm Emanuel once said that ketchup on a hot dog is simply unacceptable. And in this city, mayoral decrees on food carry weight. So while you won't face arrest for using ketchup in Chicago, you might face something worse: public shame. In Chicago, some rules don't need to be written into law. They're simply understood. Number 5, Florida, the Sunshine State. Florida is America's vacation playground. Endless beaches, world-famous theme parks, retirement communities, spring break destinations, and more golf courses than any reasonable state needs. But Florida is also famous for something else: strange news stories, unusual crimes, and laws that make you wonder what exactly happened here. Case in point. In the state of Florida, it is illegal to sing in public while wearing a swimsuit. Read that again. Singing in a swimsuit in public, against the law. The law doesn't specify what kind of singing. It doesn't matter if you're performing opera or humming a tune. Swimsuit plus singing equals violation. The origins of this law are murky. It dates back to the early 20th century, when public morality laws were common across America. During this era, many towns passed laws regulating beach behavior: what you could wear, how you could act. Apparently, singing while scantily clad was considered a step too far. The thinking may have been that singing attracts attention, and someone in a swimsuit attracting attention was considered inappropriate. Times have changed. Swimwear has gotten smaller. Public singing is hardly scandalous. But Florida never bothered to remove this law from the books. It remains technically enforceable to this day. No one has been arrested for singing in a swimsuit in decades. Probably. but the possibility technically exists. Florida has many outdated laws still on the books. This one just happens to be the most entertaining. So next time you're on a Florida beach, feel free to sing. Just know that technically you're living dangerously. Number 4, Illinois. More specifically, the small town of Zion. Zion is a quiet community about 40 miles north of Chicago, founded in 1901 as a religious utopian community, a place where people came seeking peace and order. And Zion takes order seriously, very seriously, including when it comes to dogs. In Zion, it is illegal for a dog to bark for more than 15 consecutive minutes. 15 minutes. That's the legal limit for continuous barking in this town. But the ordinance goes further. It also limits total barking to 3 separate instances within any 24-hour period. 3 barks per day. That's your dog's legal allowance. Consider what this means in practice. A mail carrier approaches the house, your dog barks. That's 1. A squirrel runs across the yard. Your dog barks. That's 2. A stranger walks by on the sidewalk. Does your dog use its final bark? This becomes a strategic decision. The law was enacted to address genuine quality of life concerns. Excessive dog barking is one of the most common noise complaints in residential areas nationwide. Zion's solution was to quantify the problem. Rather than vague language about excessive noise, they specified exact numbers. 15 minutes. 3 instances. The question of enforcement remains. How exactly does one monitor a dog's bark count throughout the day? In practice, the law is complaint-driven. Neighbors report excessive barking, and authorities investigate. Still, Zion remains the only town in America where your dog has a legally defined daily bark budget. The dogs of Zion must choose their barks wisely. Number 3, Tennessee, the volunteer state. Tennessee is the birthplace of country music, home of Nashville, Memphis, and the Great Smoky Mountains. Elvis Presley, Dolly Parton, Jack Daniel's whiskey. Tennessee also has a proud tradition of outdoor sports, hunting, hiking, and of course, fishing. There are many legal ways to catch a fish in Tennessee: rod and reel, fly fishing, nets in certain areas, even your bare hands if you're feeling adventurous. But there is one method that Tennessee has explicitly banned: the lasso. In Tennessee, it is illegal to catch a fish using a lasso. This is real. This is on the books. The obvious question is whether this method would even work. Fish are slippery. They live underwater. A lasso seems deeply impractical. Yet someone at some point tried this often enough that Tennessee lawmakers felt compelled to address it. Tennessee was settled largely by people with cattle ranching backgrounds. The lasso was a tool they knew well. Perhaps applying it to fishing seemed logical to some. The law likely exists not because lasso fishing is effective, but because it disturbs the water and other fishermen. It's an issue of method, not success. Whatever the reason, Tennessee made it official. Lasso fishing is prohibited. Rods, reels, nets, and even bare hands remain legal. But leave your lasso at home. The fish of Tennessee can swim without fear of being roped like cattle. In Tennessee, some cowboy traditions simply don't translate to fishing, and now there's a law to prove it. Number 2, Alabama, the heart of Dixie. Alabama is known for many things: college football rivalries that border on religion, Southern hospitality, barbecue that people will argue about for hours, and a deep connection to tradition. That tradition includes a strong respect for Sundays. In the South, Sunday has always been a day set apart, a day of rest, a day of church, and a day, apparently, when certain activities are strictly forbidden, including one you might not expect. In Alabama, it is illegal to play dominoes on Sunday. Dominoes, the quiet game played by grandparents on porches across America. Illegal in Alabama on the Lord's Day. Not poker, not blackjack, not any form of gambling. Dominoes, the game with the little dotted tiles. This law dates back to the 19th century. During this era, many states passed what were called blue laws, regulations designed to enforce religious observance on Sundays. Blue laws prohibited all sorts of activities on Sundays: working, shopping, drinking alcohol, and playing games that might distract from worship or rest. Over time, most blue laws were repealed or simply stopped being enforced. Society changed. Attitudes relaxed. Sundays became more like any other day. But in Alabama, the Domino's Law somehow survived. It was never formally removed from the books. No one has been arrested for Sunday dominoes in living memory. The law is effectively dead, but technically it remains enforceable. Every Sunday across Alabama, grandparents gather on porches and commit what is technically a crime. In Alabama, the past never quite lets go, even when it comes to dominoes. And finally, number 1, the strangest law in America, Georgia, the Peach State. Georgia has given America many things: Coca-Cola, Martin Luther King Jr., the world's busiest airport, peaches, obviously, and a law so strange it defies all explanation. Of all the laws we've covered today, this one stands alone. It is, without question, the most bizarrely specific law in America. In the state of Georgia, it is illegal to tie a giraffe to a telephone pole or street lamp. Read that again. A giraffe tied to a telephone pole or a street lamp. Not an elephant, not a horse, not a zebra, not any animal. Specifically a giraffe. Not a tree, not a fence, not a building. Specifically telephone poles and street lamps. The level of specificity in this law raises profound questions. What sequence of events made this law necessary? Someone, at some point in Georgia history, tied a giraffe to a telephone pole, or a street lamp, or possibly both, and it caused enough problems that Georgia lawmakers said, we need to address this specific situation, giraffes and poles. What problems could a tied giraffe cause? Did it block traffic, damage the pole, frighten the townspeople? The historical record provides no answers. The origin of this law remains a mystery. What we do know is that Georgia, at some point, had enough giraffes and enough pole-tying incidents that legislation was required. Circuses traveling through the state may have been the source. Giraffes needed to be secured somehow. But telephone poles and street lamps were public property. Towns didn't want circus animals tied to their infrastructure. Hence the law. Specific problem, specific solution. Giraffes stay off the poles. To this day, if you bring a giraffe to Georgia, you'll need to find somewhere else to tie it. The poles and lamps are off limits. And that is the strangest law in America. Georgia, we salute you. We have questions, but we salute you. And there you have it. The top 10 strangest laws still on the books in America. From ice cream in your back pocket to giraffes on telephone poles. From bathtub donkeys to Sunday dominoes. America is a strange and wonderful place. These laws remind us that behind every strange rule, there's usually a story. Someone, somewhere, did something that made a law necessary. And once a law is written, it tends to stick around, even when the original problem is long forgotten. So the next time you're in Kentucky, keep the ice cream out of your pocket. In Alaska, let sleeping bears lie. And in Georgia, find a tree for your giraffe. I'm Gio. Thank you for joining me on this journey through America's strangest laws. If you enjoyed this video, hit that subscribe button. And let me know in the comments which strange law surprised you the most. Until next time, stay curious and remember, don't put ice cream in your back pocket.